5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody, welcome to Afro Mavericks. I'm Jamie Mighty, this is Mapaseka Murwa. And today we are talking about the AU. As you may or may not know, on the 8th of February, which was Saturday, Cyril Ramaphosa took over the chairpersonship of the AU, but not only the chairpersonship of the AU, he took over the chairpersonship of the African Peer Review Mechanism. That's a 2-year portfolio. He also took over the chairpersonship of the climate portfolio as well as the infrastructure portfolio. So all in all, he's currently the chairperson of chairpersons, if you will. He's looking at 4 portfolio chairpersonships. The theme of this particular year is silencing the guns. It used to be silencing the guns 2020, but they dropped that because we're in 2020 and the guns are still firing all over the place, in the Sahel, in Libya, in DRC, in the Congo, across a variety of countries, in Mozambique, in the northern provinces. So it's chitty chitty bang bang all around Africa. But the question that we have for this particular discussion is Cyril Ramaphosa going to have an impact on the AU chairpersonship? I say no. Matt says yes. Why?
Can I just say, first of all, it's a debate. This is not necessarily our personal views.
Yeah, she's not a fan of
I did not say that. So this is my first time actually defending the man in any capacity.
Yeah, you ain't got no love for CR17. I'm just playing. But
anyways, I'm gonna go.
Let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring it to you at an academic level and provoke thought. So we don't always hold these views so that, you don't get a rigid mindset. We don't believe in that. The Afro Mavs believe in objective journalism, objective commentary and analysis, and that's why we swap around. So why is Cyril going to have an impact?
I think silencing the guns requires a person who has skills of negotiating and has the skills of conflict resolution. And I think President Cyril Ramaphosa epitomizes that, right? In the sense that he was frontline in Codesa, negotiation of South Africa, going from that really hectic season where there was a threat of civil war. I was actually listening to someone or an analyst saying, look, actually on the side of the National Party, they could have actually kept power. That was his objective analysis for another 10 years. So this man was able, with the threat of civil war, with guns coming from IFP, with all that was going on, he was able to negotiate peace. Secondly, Ramaphosa is just beyond Codesa. He is a unionist and he was able to negotiate on the side of workers. So he understands the needs of workers, and he would be someone to go in and saying, but the needs of the people are 1, 2, 3, and therefore this is what we can do. Also, he was deployed by SADC to negotiate peace in Lesotho after the alleged attempted coup. So he's someone who has the experience to calm down a storm, right? And we saw him actually bring the president of Lesotho during his inauguration. So he's the kind of person that has experience in negotiating peace and actually has been able to succeed Codesa and Lesotho. Another one would be the fact that South Africa has got a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council. That gives him that amount of muscle to say, look, this is the kind of influence that we have in the UN, and also we can use that seat to influence whatever that's happening in Africa. So I think he is more than qualified to be the chairperson of the UN, especially under this mandate of silencing peace, because he's the kind of individual that's negotiated peace. But not only, we might not like his trade-offs, but at the end of the day, he's able to bring some level of peace.
All right. I think you make some valid points. Here's my case against Cyril really making an impact at the AU level. Number one, I don't think that Cyril has the level of focus that is required to juggle both being president of South Africa right now and chairperson of 4 different entities facing African problems. Just if you think about the number of elections Africa has, it's critical elections, just to give you a few, not the whole list, just a few. Somalia, Ethiopia, Mali, so not Mali, Malawi, Tanzania, very problematic election. Sudan, possibly. Cameroon, there's a lot of tension between the Anglophones and the Francophones in Cameroon with Ambazonia and all of that stuff. Burundi, tough election there. When you think about the conflict areas in Africa, you've got Libya, protracted conflict there. You've got Ethiopia, it's a diplomatic conflict about water. You also have Central African Republic. You have the DRC, some of the provinces in the DRC have been taken over by rebel groups. You've got the Sahel region where extremists basically are running amok. That's Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. You've got extremist groups operating in the Sahel region, in Mozambique. You've got Boko Haram running amok in Nigeria and other places surrounding Nigeria. You've also got Al-Qaeda operating in Somalia. You've got them operating in Kenya in some clusters there causing commotion. So what am I trying to say? Africa is very complicated and requires somebody who is able to focus on it in a particular degree. How do you guarantee that level of focus? You guarantee it by not being distracted at home. If you look at Al-Sisi, who's the former chairperson coming from Egypt, basically that's a dictatorship. He's not under any contestation. So he's able to play the game at the African level because his home base is secure. If you look at Paul Kagame, he came in over 90%, the previous AU chairperson. He was able to push forward the African Continental Free Trade Area effectively because he wasn't distracted at home. Now, if you look at Cyril Ramaphosa, we cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, say that he's not distracted at home. He's distracted at home at two levels. Number one, he's being undermined within his own organization by the Jacob Zuma faction, Ace Makashule, and others. Didi Mabuza, you can write a whole list. These guys are plotting to undermine him at the NGC later this year. That's something that he has to pay attention to. That's one level of being distracted locally. At a national level, as the president of the country, he's got ESCOM, he's got SAA, he's got investors who are running amok, worried. He's got Moody's trying to downgrade the country to junk status, and that has consequences which we don't even have time to discuss right now. So he's distracted. But further than that, let me just finish this point. We'll come to you just now. Number one, his persona. Number two, his persona is not the persona of Al-Sisi, of Kagame. Cyril Ramaphosa has been accused, and I think sometimes fairly so, of being a slow motion type of guy. And this is not the kind of thing that is going to inspire action at the AU. Number three, I don't think that there's buy-in from the other countries, especially if you look at the peer review mechanism. It speaks to governance standards, political, economic, as well as social. These countries which have the most nonsense happening in their countries have no incentives to listen to Cyril Ramaphosa, and he's not willing to crack the whip economically or militarily or any kind of influence. So it's not going to lead to any transformation at that level. Lastly, I want to say, and this is important, I don't actually think Cyril is going to push for as much reform in Africa because Cyril suffers from an ANC syndrome. They support liberation parties, and they do so sometimes at the cost of civilians across Africa. And I don't think that if you're such a kind of guy, you're going to push for the kind of reforms because you're not going to be able to call out the bad actors all across the region. And that's something that leads to incumbency of status quo, not to transformation of status quo. That's my case against Ramaphosa doing the things.
Okay. I think at the core of it, what Ramaphosa needs to do is go into the AU and formulate a plan. That look, this is going to
an
be
NDP kind of plan.
This is a more integrated resource kind of plan. I think, look, we can agree that the ANC has never had an issue of formulating policies or solutions to the problem. The issues has been in implementation. And I think where he can be powerful in that is, look, here are the solutions, right? For the entire of Africa, militarily, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to deal with it. He sends the likes of his brother-in-law, Jeff Khadebe, to go and monitor these elections. He sends other people who
But South Africa has a bad history of monitoring elections. We ratified Malawi, we ratified Zimbabwe in 2002, 2008, 2013, 2018. Why will this particular Ramaphosa dispensation be more objective and honest when we saw that the Constitutional Court in Malawi called out a lot of irregularities that Thabo Mbeki and other observers from South Africa didn't even bother to mention.
I think it's unfair to judge him based on what other presidents or other administrations have done. I think give them.
But he was president. He was president last year when that election happened in Malawi.
Give the man a chance. Let him go in. I think the way that he was able to resolve the issues in Lesotho, that was something different. Him being deployed as part of SADC, etc. But I think all that he needs to do is to sit down and say, these are the plans. And he needs to send people who can effectively do the job to be an extension of himself.
Do you not think that Lesotho was about the water and nobody wanted that mess about the water? Do you not think that it wasn't necessarily that he was anti-coup because they were pro-coup in Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
But do you not think that they just didn't want to mess with the water situation?
I think in every situation, the guy who's helping is got some advantage that they're trying to protect. I mean, you look at us going into Sudan, or South Sudan rather, and the oil that's there. We need that oil, okay? So you can't just say, okay, you're supposed to go in, but there's no interest that you're protecting. Every single time.
Look, I just don't think Cyril is an action guy. I mean,
I get you. But every single time that the US has gone into a country, Sudan, right, prior to its splitting into Sudan and South Sudan, George W. Bush was there solely for the interest of the oil. And every other country where it's gone into
Here's my question.
To try and...
Here's my question. Number one, you talk about documents.
Yeah.
The AU has got gang documents. They got Agenda 2063. They got so many documents that like you need a PhD to cover all of the documents. They don't need another document. They don't need another plan. They got a plan. Dlamini Zuma wrote the plan. Do they not need an action man? Because Kagame is an action man. He's rolling out factories that are making cell phones, motorbikes, etc., etc. He's an action guy. He's always been. When it was game time during the genocide, Kagame delivered the victory for the people. What about Cyril makes you think that he's an action man?
I never said he was.
No,
hence I said
you say we must give him a chance,
Ramaphosa
but
needs people who can execute on his behalf.
Jeff Ratebe.
That is where
that's
he will
the
be
guy.
Able, whether it's business
launched?
people turn politicians, whatever. The fact remains, he needs to be the guy who says, this is the plan, this is how we
Who is his launch?
All these individuals,
who is Cyril
and at the
Ramaphosa's
end of the
launch?
day, those people are the extensions of Cyril Ramaphosa,
who
are the
launch?
ones that are going to bring change.
Who is his launch?
He needs to garner people from, for the first time, he needs to garner people from the private sector.
So he doesn't have a launch right now.
He needs to garner people in the private sector.
But Mavs, why private sector? Why private sector?
Just because he's been the guy who's the new Don. He is
old Vaseline.
Does the new Don mean
who's supposed to
old
bring,
Vaseline is what it is. It's not a new Don.
he is the
Old
billionaire
Vaseline.
who's supposed to step in and bring that economic change. It might be slow, but I think that our problems as South Africans and people in general is that we want quick fixes.
But he's only got a year.
And
He's only got a year. So where is he gonna do this slow motion action thing to describe it? The chairpersonship is 1 year.
All he needs to do is to plant the seed, and you know what?
What is the seed?
It will plant the seed. It's in the plans to say that 1, 2, 3 elections, conflict, extremists. This is what we're gonna do. He needs to get people from Kenya. He needs to get people from West Africa
Mavericks.
and Central Africa,
Yeah. We got
and
one
then
last minute.
roll them out.
So I think. What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
One last minute. South Africa has seen upsurgence in xenophobia. We had the whole Nigeria situation happen. Ramaphosa needs the buy-in of Africa, and South Africa in Africa isn't necessarily the most popular person right now. How does Ramaphosa manage?
South Africa, not Ramaphosa.
Yeah, no, but Ramaphosa, he's a representation of South Africa. How does Ramaphosa manage?
When he dealt with Nigeria, him and Buhari were able to sit on the table and say, look, we're actually gonna fix the situation. Him actually opening up some African countries, including Ghana, to have easier access in terms of coming to South Africa. Him ratifying the African Continental Free Trade Area. He's been, a power player. The role he's played in Lesotho, etc. He's been a power player in Africa, and I wouldn't say, look, this man has not done enough to garner some support in Africa. The relations that we enjoy with Ethiopia and the Ethiopian Prime Minister coming to his inauguration, or rather not the lecture. Yes, that January 8th address. So this man has been able to put his foot somehow into Africa. Might not be perfect, but he does have the skills to negotiate. He can solve issues, right? He does have that skill.
But Mums,
So
how does he manage South Africa's PR crisis in Africa with, how does he match that with what's happening in Africa? To give him the space in order to do what he needs to do. Jamie talked about infrastructure development. Jamie talked about Boko Haram, insurgencies, all of that stuff. How does he infiltrate and get the people in those areas to support him when South Africa seems to be doing its own thing within Africa?
Look, I think let's leave that for the audience. Because we're almost out of time.
Of his cabinet.
You know, there's a 2001 song by Sunshine Anderson. It's called I Heard It All Before. It goes, it says, all your lies, all of your sweet talk, baby this, baby that. And I heard it all before. I think the significance of the fact that we're still on Silencing the Gun 2020, and it's 2020, and it's not a 2020 plan, is exactly what Sunshine Anderson was talking about. Heard it all before. All of your lies, all your sweet talk. Baby this, baby that. You make a decision. Is Cyril Ramaphosa going to change Africa in his role as the AU chairpersonship? Like, subscribe, comment, do the thing, to the things. Till the next one, peace.